Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the breakdown video for Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford. So the Spence versus Crawford breakdown video is here, as these two undefeated welterweights will compete for pound-for-pound legacy and the undisputed welterweight title on July 29th in the main event of a Showtime pay-per-view card. I can't even believe I'm saying that, to be honest. Can't even believe I'm doing this breakdown video finally. Something I've been looking forward to such a long time. You know, it's a big time fight. Now, before we get into that, if you guys could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support as I try to build my channel up here. And anything you guys don't like, you can give me a thumbs down or just tell me like, hey, you know, I'm not digging it. But I can't wait for this fucking fight. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be big. These two guys have been dancing around each other for years, and now it's finally here. And undisputed, pound for pound. I mean, you really can argue that these guys are gonna be the pound for pound best fighter with the victory on either side. They are the top two dogs at 147 by far. And this is the biggest welterweight fight by far since the Mayweather-Pacquiao showdown. There is a rematch clause in the contract for the loser. So whoever loses this fight is going to get a rematch for sure. If they want it. And I think they have about 30 days to cash in on that. And it's just going to be a big time fight right here. So, make sure you check it out on the 29th. Now, with my breakdown videos, if you haven't seen them before, we take the two fighters. If there's two champions like this, a unification or undisputed bout, you know, I have to go with the guy who's the A side, or the first guy on the schedule, you know, are on the A side, which is Spence. And we take that and we start to and you know, we break down each fighter. We ask the same questions and say what they've done rolling into this fight and all that stuff. You know, and then at the end of the video, I do is it better for boxing if one of the other wins? And then finally, I give my prediction on the fight. So let's get into it now. We start with, you know, like I said, I've already told you how big of a fight this is. This is huge. And a potential rematch sitting there. It's just a lot of money and a lot of prestige for the winner. And I really can't wait to see it. But, you know, we start with the undefeated unified champion, Errol Spence Jr. Now, rolling into this fight, you know, his last fight, in my opinion, was probably the biggest win technically of his career, because it unified 3 of the 4 belts, and it you know, and it was a dominating performance, stopping Yordenis Ugas. But that's also, in between fights, going to be a 15-month layoff for Spence, which is a long ass time. And prior to that, he hadn't fought since he defeated Danny Garcia, which was a 16-month layoff. And then prior to that, he had fought in September of 2019, defeating Sean Porter to unify belts. You know, and so he has, we're talking, this is June of 2023 now, or July of 2023. And this is going to be his 4th fight in almost 4 years. So averaging it out, he's about fighting once a year. And, you know, I don't know what that does for a high volume stamina type performance he's going to need. You know, so he's really going to have to be in shape in this one. But he is hungry, because if you look at those 3 victories, those are probably the 3 biggest wins of his career. You know, Sean Porter defeating a guy like him in a hard-fought ass battle is a tough thing to accomplish. Dominating Danny Garcia, former champ, the way he did was impressive. And then unifying belts and dominating Yordenis Ugas was impressive. So, you know, Errol Spence, you know, he knows what's at stake. He's a veteran, 32 years old. And, he's hungry. Now, what kind of fight does Spence need to have to win this fight? He needs to use his height advantage, but he doesn't have the reach advantage. So what that tells me is he needs to be catching Errol Spence coming in. He doesn't need to set himself up as the aggressor, but he does need to mix it up because Crawford is very smart. So I think he needs to put some pressure on Crawford in the first few rounds, but he can't get caught with those counter shots. But I think that jab, because he needs to work his way on the inside with the jab and then just land that straight left down the middle. If he can do that, land the straight left down the middle, he might be able to make a difference. But maybe the right hook could be the difference in this fight. He just needs to be ready to box, stay on his toes, and go the distance in this fight, and be able to fight deep into the fight. Because, Terrence Crawford makes it a mission to stop fighters late in fights. So, Errol Spence needs to be on it in this one, and he needs to be ready to try to land that one big shot that could hurt Terrence Crawford badly and knock him out. And I think that's what he needs to try to key in on, is the jab, setting up that big one punch. Now, can Errol Spence win this fight by a knockout? I think he can. I think if he catches Crawford, or if he can use his size advantage, he might be able to hurt Crawford and knock him out, because we know Spence this is a big welterweight. And so naturally he's bigger than Crawford, who's fighting in his third different weight, or fourth actually. And we know he can hurt him. So he needs to really try to come in here and bully Terrence Crawford and, use the size advantage, and make it, somewhat of a war. If he can do that, he might be able to wear him down. But I also just think he has that one punch type power that could hurt Crawford badly and knock him out. So yeah, I think he could knock him out. Can he win a decision? Man, that's going to be tough. Crawford is so technically sound. The guy just learns his opponent so quickly. It's going to be tough to win a decision, but I'm not saying he can't, but I don't think he blows Crawford out by a decision. I think it would be close if he beats him by a decision. What does a win mean for Errol Spence Jr.? Well, it basically ties a bow on his career. It makes him maybe the pound-for-pound best fighter in boxing, makes him the undisputed champ at welterweight, and just pushes him into the twilight of his career with a big smile and him being one of the biggest stars in the sport. It really does. No question. He wins this fight. That's what it does. Even if he were to lose the rematch, it would be okay, because winning this fight is so important, because it's the first fight. It's for undisputed, and it's a fight people have been waiting for. So it's definitely going to be the biggest win of his career. Now, what does a loss mean for Spence? Well, it depends on how he loses, because he wouldn't have to invoke a rematch, even though I think he probably would. But a loss, would definitely hurt Spence, because, but again, it just depends on how he loses, because I think the majority is picking Crawford to win the fight. But I wouldn't be surprised if Spence won, and if he does win, it's really, or if he loses though and he gets his ass whipped, that could really hurt his star power and credibility rolling into the rematch. But that's not to say that it's gonna hurt him that badly, but it definitely is gonna hurt, especially if he gets his ass whipped in this first fight. Now, we roll over to the other champion, the undefeated WBO welterweight champion of the world, Terrence Bud Crawford, who's trying to become an undisputed champion for the second time in his career. He was undisputed at 140. So, Crawford here, rolling into this fight, hasn't been very active either. I think his last 3 fights date back to my wedding night, Jesus Christ, in November of 2020, when he stopped faded former champ Kell Brook. Then his next victory was, was it? I don't know if he fought in 2021. Oh, it was against Sean Porter in 2021, which you can argue was the biggest win of his career. He retired Porter, stopping him, becoming the only man to ever stop Porter, and that was impressive as hell. And I really enjoyed that one. And then his last victory was against David Avanesian in December of last year after the fight with Spence fell through. So Crawford, you know, he's been more active than Spence has, but he hasn't fought the same kind of competition outside of Sean Porter. But he's still, you know, the reigning undefeated champion. He still looks sharp as hell and good every time he fights. So I think Crawford is undisputed. I mean, is hungry as hell and wants to become undisputed to really tie a bow on his overall career, because he's like 3 years older. He's 35 than Spence. So I think he needs this win more than Spence does in terms of his career. So, you know, he's hungry as hell, and I think he's looking forward to this showdown right here. Now, what does Crawford need to do to win this fight? He needs to use that elusiveness and definitely not get caught, but he needs to figure out Errol Spence early and counterpunch his ass and then put the pressure on and really have the stamina to get Spence into the late rounds and drown him. Because I think if he can do that in a high volume type fight, because Spence has not really had to, outside of the Porter fight, he hasn't had to push himself really hard in those late rounds against Danny Garcia and Yordenis Ugas. Like, push himself to where he's working, overly working because his opponent's pushing him. If Crawford can do that and get him into the deep rounds, that might be where he could hurt him. He needs to use the reach advantage because Spence has the 1.5-inch height advantage, but surprisingly, Crawford has the 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. And he needs to use that to try to really hurt and get him out of there. Now, can Crawford win this fight by knockout? You know, I really think he can. I think he can wear down Errol Spence and knock him out in the later rounds by just outworking him, counterpunching, and just using that ring IQ and that perfect timing that he has. I absolutely think he can knock him out. Can he win a decision? Yeah, I think he can win a decision too. He hasn't fought to a decision in such a long fucking time, though. But yeah, I think he can win a decision. You know, I think he can outpoint Spence. What does a win mean for Terence Crawford? Well, it'd be the biggest win of his career. He becomes undisputed champion in a second weight class. So he's probably pound for pound best fighter in boxing. And I think it just ties a knot on the Hall of Fame and how good and how great he is as a fighter. You know, and that would just, it would just make him a just ultra superstar outside of just being a star right now if he were to beat Errol Spence. What does a loss mean for Crawford? Well, it really brings into question, depends on how he loses, of course. You know, he loses a close decision, that's not going to hurt him that bad. But if he loses, if he gets his ass whipped or gets knocked out, I think it's going to call into question the career that he's had. You know, because, and I think it's fair that you can question his career, but it doesn't take away that he's great. But it just adds to the questions. He needs this win. He needs it badly. So is it better for boxing if Errol Spence Jr. wins this fight, or is it better for boxing if Terence Crawford wins this fight? That's tough to say. But, man, I don't know. I think it's 50-50. I really do. I think Errol Spence, it's good for boxing if Spence wins, because he's got a few years left. And he can move up to 154 to 160 and set up fights there. But I also think it's great for boxing if Crawford wins, because he's so ultra talented. You're going to want to see what he does next. But I really think it's 50-50. You could go either way on this one. And I usually don't say that about any fight. I always think there's a distinct advantage. But I really think it's good for boxing if either guy wins this fight. I think they just want to see who's the better man and who's the winner. And now finally, what's my prediction on the super fight for the undisputed welterweight title between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Bud Crawford? And I'm picking the same guy I've been picking since the fight came on the table, and that is Terence Crawford. Bud is, in my opinion, too good. Even as good as Errol Spence is, I just think Bud's on another level. I really do. Talent-wise, the way he counterpunches. If you guys want to know why, the Sean Porter fight. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Sean Porter was old. They fought 2 years difference from each other. And Sean Porter was still a top 3-4 welterweight And he gave Terrence Crawford a tough time. He did. As he did with everybody else he's fought and Errol Spence. But the difference is Crawford was able to counterpunch, time, and set up Sean Porter to where he knocked him out and stopped him. Something nobody's ever done. To me, that is the difference in this fight right here. I think Terrence Crawford is going to counterpunch, set Errol Spence up. I think technically he's more sound. He's better. He's smarter. And I think he has been waiting and starving for a fight like this to prove just how good he really is, and it's going to come out in this fight. But I do believe Errol Spence is very good. I do believe his timing is good. And I do believe if he lands a big left hand, that he might be able to hurt Bud as well and knock him out. But I think if he's going to win, it's going to have to be by knockout. I don't think he can win a decision. I don't see him winning a decision against Crawford, but you never know. And we're going to see what's going to happen between these two fighters on Saturday, July 29th on Showtime pay-per-view. But I'm picking Terrence Crawford to win this fight and become the undisputed welterweight champion of the world at 147 pounds over Errol Spence. But it should be good. Again, Saturday, July 29th, Showtime pay-per-view. This is the Spence versus Crawford breakdown video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.